with, again, the argument of, freedom of speech and censorship, because instead of the gangster rap, they're coming with these hypersexual explicit lyrics. It's literally like pornography on a rap record. Again, something that we had never heard or seen before. And just like in WA, the mainstream narrative was that nobody wanted anything to do with 2 Live Crew. Nobody wanted to play their music. Nobody wanted to sell their records. But all the mainstream coverage of the fact that nobody wanted anything to do with 2 Live Crew is making the world more aware of 2 Live Crew. And there was a huge media frenzy around this group. You had store owners getting arrested just for selling their records. And it gets to the point where 2 Live Crew is actually taken to court and put on trial for their lyrics, which again creates this huge debate over freedom of speech, which is giving 2 Live Crew more attention. And again, it's pushing this group that supposedly nobody wanted anything to do with further and further into the mainstream.
Mark Emery walked into London's courthouse convinced he would be found guilty of selling obscene material. He was right. Last October, the bookshop owner sold copies of the band 2 Live Crew album, Nasty as They Want to Be. Today, Judge John Menzies ruled the band's violent themes are obscene. Emery was convicted but given a discharge on the condition he is of good behavior for a year.
The record industry, recording artists, and various people are going to suffer far more substantially in the future than this cassette would indicate today. I mean, it made it look like it was just an exercise in academia, like we're going to discuss, the merits of this case. What it really means is in the future, the police can charge retailers for having 15, 20, 30, 40 tapes that may be similar to this one, and a precedent's been set.
A Florida jury says the rap group 2 Live Crew can't be as nasty as they want to be if they want their records sold in stores. In what's being called a landmark case, the jury convicted a record store owner on obscenity charges for selling a 2 Live Crew album, an album banned by a federal judge because of its lyrics. Charles Freeman was arrested in June for selling the album As Nasty as They Want to Be. He insists his arrest violates the First Amendment right of freedom of speech and says his conviction is racially motivated.
It doesn't reflect my community as a black man in Broward County. It's unfair. The jury was all white. There were no blacks on the jury pool at all, only one. And they don't know where EC Records is. They don't know nothing about the damn ghetto.
The leader of 2 Live Crew also faces trial in Florida. He's charged with performing obscene material.
So you got store owners getting arrested for selling these records. You got members of 2 Live Crew getting arrested for performing the lyrics. You got everyday civilians getting arrested. But in all this backlash and this media coverage about how nobody wants anything to do with this music, the record companies and major corporations that are responsible for distributing this music are not being held accountable at all. They're not even being mentioned amongst all this media coverage. Even when 2 Live Crew's lyrics are put on trial, 2 Live Crew is taken to court, not the distribution company responsible for distributing this music out to the masses, not the record company responsible for signing and giving this group a platform. Everything about this was just saying publicity stunt, because with everything being focused on 2 Live Crew, it's actually giving more media coverage to 2 Live Crew. And they're hitting us at multiple angles. On one end, it's a First Amendment right issue. It's all about freedom of speech. And then on the other end, it's a racism issue, targeting the free will of black people specifically. And all of this is culminating in people getting arrested for supporting this music. And all of these arrests are conveniently being captured on video. And then this whole thing being painted as a fight for freedom and being aggressively pushed out into the mainstream media is actually enticing people to support this music. All this media coverage is doing nothing but increasing the sales. They're playing the lyrics from the songs. They're showing the imagery from the music videos. This is all really just promotion. Because you would think if you don't want something to be seen or heard, it's pretty simple. You don't give it any attention. You don't play it. You don't show it. But they were doing the exact opposite. They're giving this thing as much attention as it could possibly get. They're telling you we're against this, but then they're constantly showing it. They're constantly promoting it. And again, the artists that are going to lead you to the music are the ones that are getting all the attention. No mention of the record labels, no mention of the distribution companies. This was the exact same thing they did with NWA, claiming that they were against the music while at the same time giving all the media attention to NWA. But the major corporations are responsible for actually financing these artists and giving them a platform on the national stage are not being acknowledged at all by the media. You know, you got NWA being backed and financed by Universal, and you got 2 Live Crew being backed and financed by Warner. These 2 major corporations that both just so happen to have investments in radio and media. So it's almost like the same corporations financing and backing this music are the same ones that are using the media to subliminally promote them. And at this point, we're getting hit at both ends. The guns, the drugs, the gangster rap being promoted by NWA. And then we got the lack of sexual discipline, the disrespect of women, and basically the pornography being promoted by 2 Live Crew. And what's crazy is that years later, you got Brother Marcus from 2 Crew coming out and saying that he regrets ever putting this music out.
You know, these days, a rapper coming out with a song called We Want Some Pussy wouldn't even raise an eyebrow. But back then, you know, We Want Some Pussy, Throw the D, like this just wasn't done in music in general and hip hop in particular. So
Right.
when this came out, what was the initial reaction?
Well, with me, I didn't like doing that style of rap. You know what I mean? I was, you know, calling myself being on something kind of conscience, more hip hop-ish, and I really wasn't comfortable with all the profanity that we were putting into the music. But my grandmother taught me a lot of respect. She taught me a lot of good values that I kind of, you know, that I kind of live by today. And I guess once it had, when you see the reaction from it, you know, in the community and everybody's loving it, you know, you kind of go with it, you know?
I mean, at your age, when you look back at some of the lyrics, you know, for example, you know, me and my homies like to play this game, some call it Amtrak, you know, we call it the train. And there's a part of the song where you say, the girl will say, stop, I say, I'm not. I mean, kind of rapey lyrics when you look back on it.
Yeah, but I have never forced myself on a female. I've never raped a young lady. I've always had consensual sex. Never none of that. Never none.
I understand that, and I'm not accusing you of that.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying is that when you look at those lyrics, now,
some of that was going on back then, and my loyalty turned into stupidity. And I thought that I was being smart at that time, which I was being stupid. But it all comes from, you know, I had no male figures in my life, and this shit fast. I'm down there in Miami. It's a culture shock. It was new and it blew up so fast, man. It happened so fast. And by the time it got started and by the time it ended, it was done.
And now things are really starting to crank up because you got Ice-T, who's also getting more popular and is taking on this persona of, you know, the pimp and the gangster. And eventually he drops the song Cop Killer, which is literally a song about killing police officers. And again, all of this is being financed by Warner Brothers, a major corporation. And coincidentally enough, in the time that all this is going on, we also have all these extensive studies and experimental research on the effects of music on the human brain. Right around 1989, right when NWA, 2 Live Crew, Ice-T are starting to be pushed into the mainstream. At the same time, they are studying how music affects the human brain, and specifically how it makes its way to the temporal lobe through the auditory cortex and completely bypasses the conscious mind. At the same time that we're getting this experimental research on music and the human brain, we're also seeing this drastic shift in hip hop. And if there was any question that this wasn't being intentionally done, right behind NWA, we're getting groups like HWA, who was again financed and backed by Universal. And they just kept pushing it. Right along with HWA, we got BWP, who was signed to Columbia Records, financed and backed by Sony. But while this is all going on, we still have these artists that are sticking to the foundation of hip hop and are staying dedicated to putting out these more positive, conscious messages. You know, we got Brand Nubian, The Wise Guys, Gangstar, Harmony, Miss Melody, The Jungle Brothers, De La Soul, all dropping these deep, conscious messages in their lyrics while staying 100% clean and 100% positive. And what's crazy is that even on the exact same record label as 2 Live Crew, we still have MC Shy D, who's coming with that same Southern Miami-based sound, but without any of the explicit lyrics. MC Shy D is dropping this heavy on the bass, party music with nothing but positive lyrics, speaking out against the drugs and the violence within the community, making songs about love and commitment, all over this down south Miami bass sound. 3 straight albums, all conscious with positive messages. But he's not getting near the same amount of publicity and mainstream attention as 2 Live Crew. But the music is still resonating with the masses, you know, enough for 3 straight albums. And then we got the group Kid and Play that is still going strong. And in the midst of all this going on, is actually taking this uplifting, positive hip hop to a whole nother level.